The moment a breakup destroys you is the exact moment your real identity begins to emerge. And most men never realize this. They try to fix the pain, instead of becoming the man the pain is trying to create. Every man believes he knows who he is until life removes something he thought he needed, until the relationship ends, until the connection disappears, until the identity he built around that person collapses. And suddenly, he is left alone with himself, not the version he presents to the world, but the version beneath it, the one shaped by wounds, patterns, and unconscious beliefs. The confident man becomes uncertain, the grounded man becomes triggered, the stable man becomes restless, and in that moment it feels like something has gone wrong. But this is not failure. This is initiation. This is the beginning of the masculine rebirth, the moment where the illusion breaks so that something real can emerge. And if you've ever felt like a breakup didn't just hurt, but completely changed who you are, like something inside you collapsed and you couldn't go back to the man you were before, then you are already inside this transformation. Because what you are experiencing is exactly what Carl Jung described as individuation, the process where a man is forced to confront and rebuild his identity from the inside out, not based on who he was taught to be, but based on who he truly is. Ancient cultures understood this. They saw heartbreak not as weakness, but as a rite of passage. Because only pain strong enough to shake your identity can reveal the identity you were meant to embody. And this is why the breakup hit so deeply, not because you lost her, but because you lost the version of yourself that was tied to her. Most men live through roles: the pleaser, the provider, the rescuer, the protector, the man who earns love through effort, through sacrifice, through proving himself. But these identities are not real. They are adaptations. They are survival strategies shaped by childhood, by conditioning, by emotional wounds. And when the relationship ends, those roles collapse, not because you failed, but because they were never truly you. This is where the real journey begins. A breakup does not just end a relationship, it ends the illusion of who you thought you were, and what comes after is not repair. It is reconstruction. And this is the part most men misunderstand, because they think they are trying to heal, when in reality, they are being rebuilt. A breakup forces a man into confrontation, not with the other person, but with himself. The man beneath the persona, beneath the mask, beneath the patterns, and this confrontation leads to something most men avoid their entire lives: identity reconstruction. Who you were cannot follow you into who you are becoming. And this is why the collapse felt so intense, because your old identity was built on survival, on fear of abandonment, on fear of rejection, on emotional coping patterns learned in childhood. And when the relationship triggered those patterns, the identity built around them began to crack. It was never about her. She was the mirror, reflecting what was still unresolved within you, and when that reflection became too clear, the illusion could not hold anymore. You didn't lose yourself. You lost the version of you that was built on pain. This is the stage most men fear, because it feels like regression, like losing control, like falling apart. But this descent is necessary, because this is where you meet the parts of yourself you have avoided: the anger, the fear, the shame, the old memories, the unresolved wounds. Jung called this the confrontation with the shadow, the moment where everything unconscious becomes visible. And this is why it feels overwhelming. Because you are not just feeling the breakup, you are feeling everything it connects to. But this is sacred. This is where transformation happens, not in comfort, but in depth, not in clarity, but in chaos, not in control, but in surrender. And you didn't stay here. You moved through it. Because the man who is willing to face himself in the dark becomes a man who cannot be shaken in the light. At some point, something shifts. The reactions slow down, the emotions stabilize, the patterns become visible, and instead of being controlled by them, you begin to understand them. Your inner child begins to feel safe. Your nervous system stops collapsing. Your boundaries become clear. Your intuition sharpens. And for the first time, you begin to feel like yourself again, not the old self, but something more grounded, more real, more stable. This is integration. This is where the boy and the man no longer fight each other, but begin to align, where the past no longer controls the present and the identity becomes whole. And this is where everything changes, because the man who emerges from this process is not a repaired version of who he was. He is different, more conscious, more selective, more grounded, more aligned. He no longer chases chaos. He no longer tolerates disrespect. He no longer abandons himself to maintain connection, because he has learned the cost of that. He moves with clarity, he chooses with intention, and he builds his life from a place of alignment, not from wounds. This is the man reborn. Because there is a moment in this process where everything becomes clear, not all at once, not in some dramatic breakthrough, but slowly, quietly, where you begin to see your past differently, where you no longer blame the other person, where you no longer replay every moment trying to understand what went wrong, but instead, you begin to understand what was being shown to you. And this shift changes everything, because now the breakup is no longer something that happened to you. It becomes something that happened for you. You begin to see how you tolerated what you shouldn't have tolerated, how you ignored your intuition, how you stayed longer than you should have, how you tried to make something work that was never aligned in the first place. And instead of judging yourself for it, you begin to understand it. You see the patterns, the conditioning, the emotional imprints that led you there. And in that understanding, there is power, because awareness removes repetition. And this is where the real transformation locks in, because once you see clearly, you cannot go back to unconscious patterns without feeling it, without noticing it, without recognizing when something is off. And that awareness becomes your protection. It becomes your filter. It becomes your new standard. You start choosing differently, not because you are trying to be better, but because you are no longer the same man. And this is the shift that most men never reach. They go through heartbreak, but they don't let it change them. They feel the pain, but they avoid the lesson. They move on, but they repeat the pattern. But you didn't. You stayed with it. You faced it. You understood it. And because of that, you are no longer the man who entered that relationship. You are the man who was built from it. And there is something even deeper that happens when a man goes through this kind of transformation, something subtle but powerful, where he no longer seeks to return to who he was. He no longer feels the urge to rebuild the past. He no longer tries to recreate what he lost, because he understands that what broke was never meant to continue. And this realization brings a different kind of peace, not the temporary kind that comes from distraction, but the grounded kind that comes from acceptance. He stops looking backwards, he stops questioning the decision, and instead, he moves forward with certainty, knowing that every step away from what was misaligned is a step closer to what truly belongs to him. And once you become this man, you realize something most never understand, that the breakup was never the end. It was the beginning of who you were always meant to become. This was not loss. This was transformation, not failure, but initiation, not destruction, but reconstruction. And the man you are becoming now is not the man you were trying to save. He is the man you were always meant to become. Chop wood, carry water, and let's keep the fire burning.